Last night, basically, I was kind of, I don't know if you want to call it meditating or whatever, like whenever you go into your deep thinks. And I was kind of like exploring the whole concept of false idols and, like what it means, how many different interpretations there are of like, the words and how they change over time, all of that kind of stuff. And, I mean, like, I'm somebody that studied pretty much, most of my life different religions and kind of like, I guess you would say, piecing together my own beliefs out of them. I don't really ascribe to any kind of doctrine. It's mainly just, what I feel like is real, what resonates with me, and I kind of go with it from there. So I was kind of thinking about like what is an idol, and it seems to me that an idol is basically like a symbol. It's something that represents a belief, and going from that, it's like going from that angle and kind of like thinking about the whole Christian, you shall not, like don't worship false idols. And I was kind of like breaking it down into my own interpretation and what I think it means. And if you, kind of like think about it from the aspect that it doesn't mean at face value what like the term idol might come across as meaning. Like it doesn't mean like a statue. It doesn't mean, like something that you use to represent something else. And if you just think about it from the standpoint that it represents a belief or like some kind of firmly held attachment to some ideal or ideology, it kind of like, to me, starts to become, if you think about that commandment, thou shalt not worship false idols, or, however it goes, since there's different interpretations, that basically what it's trying to tell you is that you shouldn't get too hung up on your own beliefs, and you shouldn't really get too fixated on the idea that know, like, I guess, like there's some right way to go about spirituality. And my problem with most religions is that, they try to dictate and offer a doctrine and tell you, like, this is the law, basically, of that religion and that you should follow it. And, if you don't, then you're basically like a bad person, a cast out, a reject from whatever their, religious views are. And I mean, like, some of the things that, like, I just really clash with is, like, I mean, if you look at a lot of the stuff, like, I was raised Catholic, and they basically tell you, like, homosexuals are going to hell, it's against the church to be gay. And then, they have priests basically getting cover ups for molesting children and all this kind of stuff. So, I mean, like, I found a lot of paradoxes and contradictions whenever it gets into the religious realm, and I guess that's why I don't really, like, attach to any of them. But then, I feel like there's wisdom in everything. So, like, if you're willing to kind of, like, think about these things and break them down and not necessarily just take them at face value, but realize that there's some kind of underlying truth or wisdom in them, to me, like whenever I hear something like, you shall not have false idols, to me it's basically like, telling me like you shouldn't get hung up on your belief or idea of what God is, or like what you think the, I guess, like the religious implications of believing in any kind of specific, right, like what Inspec's saying, like dogma is bad. And like this is one of the things that, like, I guess originally kind of drew me to study Buddhism, is like, if you know anything about fundamental Buddhists, they basically burn their scrolls. They don't put a lot of stock in the written word, and most of it's about exploring and changing over time. It's definitely a lot, like, I think of Buddhism as much more of a philosophy than a religion. I mean, if anything, to me, it's kind of like an anti religion. It's about breaking down your own beliefs and not really becoming too attached to these ideas. So it was just kind of interesting, something that I've heard so many times throughout my life. Don't have false idols, to actually look at it from a different mindset. It seems kind of like there was some wisdom hidden in there from the beginning, and what it was really trying to say is, to me, don't get hung up on the idea that any one church is correct. Don't get hung up on the idea that somebody has to teach you these things. And it's really more about the concept of figuring out your own truths, not hanging on to them too greatly, and like also being able to let go of your own beliefs and kind of explore and learn things for yourself. Anybody have any thoughts on that? I definitely like what Inspect was saying. You don't want your own beliefs to be so rigidly held in stone. You don't want your own dogma to be so vigorous that you can't live up to it. I mean, I feel like that's one of the reasons why I think of religions as basically the earliest form of government. Is essentially they were setting rules in place. Some of them I highly agree with. Some of them I think are mainly meant to manipulate and control people, just like a lot of the government laws are. I mean, I feel like some of them are just kind of over the top and not really necessary. And welcome back, Zoe. Let's see, it looks like we have Stacy's here, Zoe's here, Amber's here, Julia's here, and I think Rondon's out there listening somewhere, being a lurker. Let's see, Amber says, much of religious dogma is designed to control the masses, and I agree with you 100%. And I mean, I don't think it's necessarily from a negative standpoint that these things were created. I think that they were basically, like founding stepping stones, maybe like the foundation of modern society. And whether we agree or disagree with modern society, I mean, getting people to work together towards common goals, finding shared belief systems, I think there's like some merit to that. But at the same time, I think whenever we get into this, segregated mindset that like one belief will necessarily like excommunicate you from the rest of the group, and a lot of these people don't necessarily even have all the same core beliefs. So, like, why ascribe to, like a label or a religion that you really don't identify with just because you want to be part of a group? It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me from that mindset. Yeah, sorry, Zoe. I have a really, really low voice, so like I boost up my mic and try to make it, I guess, more hearable. But let me know if you can hear any better when you reconnect. Right. I mean, I definitely agree, Stacy. Not buying into a specific religion, but I mean, at the same time, I feel like there's wisdom to be gained everywhere. There's nothing wrong with studying something, even if you don't agree with it. I mean, if anything, it just reinforces your own ideas and thoughts. But there's still things you can learn, and it's always good to know like what other people's, I guess, beliefs are founded upon. Because I mean, like if you look at zealots, which are one of the people that I think take this concept of believing in false idols kind of like to the extreme. They're so ingrained in doctrine and dogma that they basically will go out and kill people to protect it and propagate it. It's just, to me, like that's not a healthy view of human interaction in society. Right, so we're in agreement about that. I mean, there's wisdom to be found if you're willing to be analytical about it. And right, like I think that's one of the reasons why I get turned off from it too. That whole convert or condemn mindset. To me, it's just like a competitive mindset to where one religion has to win. And in the end, I mean, if you look at most of these religions, they tell you that we're, basically created in God's image or whatever. And to think that some of us are more right than others, to me, would ultimately just be you questioning the God that you're trying to believe in the first place. So if you think that, you know, that God makes mistakes, then why are you following them? And I really feel like that gets back into the false idol part of it. If you don't believe in something that's being taught and you're being told that that's right, then essentially to me it's the same mindset with like laws with the government. If a law is immoral or unjust, you're not supposed to follow it. You're not supposed to try to hold other people accountable to a law that you don't believe in. It's not moral, it's not just, and it's not right. Amber says, I have some stories about narrow minded religious people, evangelists, and Baptists that I know. Yeah, I mean, like, I've had interactions with all kinds of people. I try not to, like, pigeonhole individual religions, but I mean, a lot of mine are, like, a lot of my personal growth started out being raised Catholic, so, I'm gonna probably always have that mindset somewhere in the back of my mind. And yeah, just like you said, cherry picking which verses and books that you want to, throw at people whenever the situation fits is kind of one of the problems I have with it altogether, too. LL Farm says the problem is 95% of religious individuals today have no idea what the Bible says. And you know what? I agree with you, and I also think that part of the problem there is a lot of stuff gets lost in translation. I think over time, words change meaning, obviously, getting translated into different languages. I mean, like, you can look at so many different words and just see how our basic human understanding of what a word means changes over time. So even like if I'm just having a conversation with you right now, my whole approach to you is kind of like based on the assumption that you understand and get the same meaning from the words that I'm using as I have. Now, I have no way to know if you understand the words the same way that I do, and whenever you start getting into something like teaching people belief systems and basing like their whole life around them, and that gets into a lot of gray area where I feel like laws and religions get manipulated to try to control people. Let's see, Graylin pulls up a quote from Deuteronomy. Oh yes, one of my favorites, right up there with Leviticus. Let's see, a rebellious son. If someone has a stubborn and rebellious son who does not obey his father and mother and will not listen to them when they discipline him, his father and mother shall take hold of him and bring him to the elders at the gate of his town. They shall say to the elders, the son of ours is stubborn and rebellious, he will not obey us, he is a glutton and a drunkard. Then all the men of his town are to stone him to death. You must purge the evil from among you. All Israel will hear of it and be afraid. And I definitely agree with you. I don't think there's a lot of ways to misinterpret what they mean by that. And see, like, one of my problems, and this really gets into one of those, like, I guess, heated areas with a lot of people is, a lot of people won't claim to be Christian and they'll claim to be like followers of Jesus. And I think, that's fine. Like, I think, like, just like people that follow Buddha, people that follow Jesus, like, if you look into basically like how they live their lives, and you find some kind of truth in that, and you think of them as like a teacher or whatever, and you want to try to like model your philosophy and lifestyle after that. I don't think there's any kind of problem with that, but I think like it gets into the whole false idol thing whenever you won't think for yourself and you just assume that their way was correct, or you start worshiping the actual entity or person. And that's one of the things that, like, I guess I learned from Buddhism is if you study Buddhism, just like how they burn the scrolls, they don't worship the Buddha either. The Buddha is basically like a state of being. So even if one person is considered to be the Buddha, it doesn't mean that anybody else can't be the Buddha. So like, Christianity seems to be based around the idea that there was Jesus Christ and nobody else could ever be Jesus Christ. But what I think it should be saying is there was Jesus Christ and everybody else can be Jesus Christ if they want to be. Let's see, Dan says, always thought that religions had the same core rules, e.g., don't kill, harm, still, to me, suggests that laws come before religion, and religion has just been used to corrupt an honest cause. Love in the do it quote. Yeah, I mean, I can't really say which came first because obviously none of us were alive back then. And I mean, if you want to trust history books to all be perfect, then go with that and assume religions and worshiping idols and deities and the sun god and all the paganism and all that was around first. But I mean, to me, like the whole false idol thing kind of comes back to saying getting hung up on any one particular belief like that is ultimately going to be your downfall. It's setting yourself up to unrealistic ideals and trying to hold yourself accountable to things that are basically told to you that you're supposed to believe this, but you don't really discover those beliefs on your own. So my thoughts on this are, like, even if you take it from the Christian sense and we're all created in God's image, which I think mainly, like, my personal beliefs are more that, like, God is everything. But if you look at it from, like, a Christian standpoint and we're all created in God's image, then why would basically he create people to counteract his own beliefs? Like, well, you would have to think that some all-powerful being would know what they're doing. And yes, you're definitely right, LL Farms. Christianity does imply following Christ. Graylin says this is the Quran. When you meet the unbelievers, smite their necks. Definitely. I feel like dogma is just ultimately a tool of segregation and manipulation. Aragon says it feels bad, chains negative. Let's see, Dan is writing about this right now. Interesting. I'll have to be sure to check that out. Graylin, each culture has bad parts of it. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I just think good and bad's pretty subjective. So, what I think is good or bad, and what you think is good or bad, and what a religious zealot might think is good and bad are all different, and it all depends on our own perspectives. Zoe says, what I always like to point out is that these religious books were written by humans. This is definitely stuff to learn in them, or there's definitely stuff to learn in them, but they were written by people. Who knows what those people were like? I agree, because I think like our own personal perspective, whenever we write anything down, ultimately is limited by our individual perspective at that point. So if our perspective changes over time, this is one of the reasons why like we can write on the same topic over and over and over again, because every day, we change, we evolve, we become something different. We're never fixed in a finite state of being. So every time we write about something, we can definitely have a different, I guess, like mindset or idea of what it is. And yeah, Stacy was saying lots of religious people get caught up in the doctrines and forget that the map is not the territory. I mean, I definitely can agree with that. I think humans are way too complicated as a whole to be basically shaped and formed into a single file line saying we're all going to follow the single file line. I mean, think about how boring that would be. Like, if everybody was exactly the same, I mean, wouldn't it just get boring if we all believed the exact same thing and we all did the exact same thing every day? It wouldn't really be there wouldn't be any innovation. There wouldn't be any change. I mean, to me, there would just be no point. Like, what would be the point of living? I think if we consider the contrast as kind of like I guess, like the seasoning of existence, I mean, you wouldn't know love if you didn't know fear. You wouldn't know happiness if you didn't also know how to be sad. Expecting things to always be one way would just, to me, just be the way, and it would just get boring. Like, happiness wouldn't be happiness if you were never sad. You would just always feel that way, and you wouldn't have anything else to compare it to. And yeah, like Stacy's saying, we wouldn't know what we believed if there was no conflict or argument. And that reminds me of an Alan Watts lecture, wherever he's saying, I'm a philosopher. I don't know what to think if you don't argue with me. It's just, to me, it's kind of the truth. Like, if we don't have anything to grade against, how do we really define our own boundaries and beliefs? Gorillid says he thinks we're moving towards an AI virtual existence. There's some interesting theories out there, like the holographic theory of the universe. It's interesting reading. I mean, I think religion's just like governments are a tool that over time are going to become obsolete. Whenever we don't need them anymore, they'll go away. I don't think spirituality will necessarily go away, but religions and segregated beliefs like that. Who knows? Maybe one day humans will get away from like like some people think of that as like a tribalism mindset. I really don't know if that's the right way to look at it or not, but it's definitely a segregated view of society whenever you have believers and non-believers, and then they overlap with other segregated views of society. Like you can have white people that believe in Christianity. You can have African Americans that believe in Christianity, and then like you can segregate those two, where you have churches that only white people go to, and you have churches that only African American people go to, and basically they believe the same things, but they're still segregated. Which to me that just gets. I feel like if people could realize that at like the base of our existence, we're all really the same thing, and we're all kind of like operating from the same starting place, and realize that we all ultimately end up at the same place when it's over. Everything that happens in between there is just how we get there. So, like, I don't feel like we need to define and create all these borders and labels to lock people into, like firmly held beliefs. And I think that's really what ties into the whole concept of false idols, false belief systems, false symbols of what you think define how reality is. Yes, Ron, dude, sometimes I am chaotic good. I like to think I've move around the spectrum depending on what's going on at the moment. Sometimes I'm chaotic good, sometimes I'm chaotic neutral, sometimes I'm lawful neutral. Why do I think Bitcoin fell? Well, I have been involved in cryptos for a while, and what I'll tell you is I think that there's a lot of controlled FUD and manipulation in this market, and it was kind of expected. I didn't expect it to still be going on this deep into the year, but I still think over the summer we're going to be moving back into all-time highs towards the end of the year. That's my personal belief, not investment advice, obviously. Yes, inspect. We're all definitely somewhere on a spectrum. Re. But the banksters see it as a threat. No, I don't think so. As long as people are still swapping out cryptocurrencies for fiat, then the people printing out the fiat still have the power to just buy it all, honestly. It's the people that aren't selling and the people that won't ever give away, 100% control for paper money that's not really backed by anything important that are going to ultimately, to me, be the winners. But, there's another concept for false idols. Does money really equal power? Does cryptocurrency really equal power? I mean, I think it's all just tools. They can, help you along whatever you're trying to do in your life, whatever you're trying to accomplish. But in the end, do they actually have any kind of meaning? To me, not so much. To me, it's just an illusion of control and comfort. You can think like having money will, secure your future, but in all seriousness, a meteor could appear out from behind the moon tomorrow and we all die anyway. So, like, focusing too long term into the future and thinking that money is like giving you some kind of security against the universe is just kind of a joke to me. I mean, like, you could have a brain aneurysm right now, like in the middle of this conversation, and what did money really do for you? It didn't change the fact that you were still going to die whenever you're going to die. Well, everybody besides you, Inspect, you're the only one that can't actually die. So, but I mean, I kind of think of death as like the ultimate equalizer. Honestly, it's why you don't have dynasties that never fall. You don't have corrupt people that take control and just hold on to control for all of existence. I mean, we all have a finite amount of time. I think that's by design, and it has a very important purpose into the balancing act of the power of existence. You don't. Yeah, these are my own personal beliefs about what I think God is. If you think about it, I really think God is a connective energy that flows between all of us. I think consciousness is not necessarily trapped into a particular body. So, if you were an all powerful being and you wanted to do something besides get bored with yourself all the time, the only thing you could really do is ultimately forget who you were and have a whole bunch of versions of yourself running around, just exploring existence without being in control of it all, honestly. See, yeah, Amber also believes that we come back for the next life. And I try not to even really get hung up too much on like what my thoughts of like living the same life or like the next life. I mean, for all I know, this is the only life I'll ever be a human, and my next life I might be like some kind of random, like maybe I'll be a moray eel or something. Like who knows? Maybe I'll be a blade of grass. It'll be a short one. I mean, like, why bother really worrying about stuff we don't know or don't have control over? Just kind of enjoy the experience and let it happen, in my perspective. Yeah, just a chance to repair our karma. What if we are in a multiverse and you are living infinite versions of life at the same time? That is actually something I consider fairly often, Graylin. I don't think of time as basically. I think of time as fluid. I don't think time exists the ways that we try to measure it. I think part of the human condition is to try to control everything, and whenever we break it down into finite, like little bits and pieces that we can comprehend, we try to basically control it in that process. But if you think about it, you can sit there and watch seconds tick by, but what are you really doing while you're watching those seconds tick by? Like, you're not living, you're not doing anything, you're just watching the seconds tick away. Now, at the same time, you can think, like, okay, I went to school today, I don't really remember anything that happened at school today, but I know I went. So, like, what happened between now and then? Or, like, what happens 20 years from now when you're thinking like, huh, I remember this time we had that conversation, and it turns out time really didn't matter because I don't really remember. I feel like time only exists when we're focusing on it. So if you're thinking about like what happened at a particular point, you can remember it. If you're worrying about things that are coming in the future, you can, try to guess and expect what you think's going to happen. But the only time we ever really exist is right now. So while I think it's good to like have plans and kind of like have some kind of idea of what you're doing with your life, I think in the grand scheme of things, does it really matter all that much what you plan to happen? Because I mean, I think the universe is going to ultimately dictate whether or not you accomplish these things, and while you can keep working towards them, nothing's guaranteeing you're going to be able to make anything happen. Just like, dwelling on the past and thinking about it isn't going to change it. It's just still what happened. So that's my perspective on it anyway. Zoe, I think my internet really doesn't want me participating in this conversation. I'm sorry, Zoe, but if it makes you feel better, I am recording it and I will be posting it later so that we can interact on the post and talk in some comments, things like that. That'll be cool. And looks like Julia is looking up Open Bazaar. I think Open Bazaar is actually going to be really interesting. It's gonna, to me, I think like the whole concept is basically creating an open, not necessarily Silk Road, but basically it's just decentralizing the distribution of goods. So if we already have a decentralized economy that we're building, we no longer have to go through companies or governments to get the goods that we want. We just have to, pay another person and get them sent to us. I think the more decentralized power gets, the more free we all are to live our own lives the way we want. So ultimately, it's good. Let's see. Yeah. So, does anybody else have anything else on the topic of false idols and I guess like all these control systems that we get fixated on or doctrines that we obsess over? Anything like that? What about celebrities? I mean, the way I think about it, just like a celebrity is only as like think about a celebrity as like somebody that a lot of people just have an obsession or attachment to. Like, is it any better or worse than having a, I guess like a romantic attachment that you can't let go of? I mean, I don't think so. I mean, I think it's just people start to agree that they all have some kind of fixation or attachment on this one person, and a lot of people use it to make money, or, there's a lot of celebrities that use their status and influence to actually do good and try to change the world. I mean, I think ultimately, as long as you're not worshiping the person, I don't think it's really a big deal. But yeah, like what you're saying there, Julia, people definitely do worship some of these celebrities. So in the end, it's just another false idol to me. I mean, Jesus Christ is kind of like the ultimate celebrity if you think about religions. So lots of people worship, some follow, some try to dictate their entire lives based on it. And yeah, unhealthy obsession. Obsession is one of those things that kept coming to my mind with the whole false idol topic. I was thinking it really is like attachment really is an obsession. Some people get more obsessed than others about different things. I mean, I don't think anybody can exist without some kind of vice, because what would be the point? I mean, you have to have something that you enjoy. You have to have some kind of reason to get up in the morning. I just think we all have to kind of find what's right for us and enjoy it. And yeah, Zoe says she doesn't think anybody should idolize celebrities. I mean, I don't think so either, but is anybody gonna stop just because I say you shouldn't be worshiping a celebrity? From their perspective, they probably don't view it as worship or idealization or anything like that. Let's see. Big Dizzle says being a celebrity doesn't automatically exclude you from being a decent role model or someone who can be looked up to and idolized. And I definitely agree with you. There are a lot of people that, like what I was saying earlier, take their fame and try to use it to better the world. And I think that's an awesome thing. So is celebrity status, fame, all of that really a negative thing? I mean, I would never want to be famous. I don't think I'd want to walk around on the street and everybody just be like, oh, hey, there he goes, running up and try to like tackle me and take pictures of me and sell them on the internet and all that crap. I mean, I guess some people like get off on that or, enjoy it, but some people just endure it because they want the money or the influence. But I mean, who's to say who's right or wrong? I mean, I just personally, I don't really enjoy it. I don't think it would like ruin my life, but I don't think I would want people just stopping me and recognizing me everywhere I go. LL Farm says it's subjective. There are a few I wouldn't mind having a beer with. I agree. There's some cool celebs. Yeah, dude, if you ever see me on TMZ, I might be going a little Kanye, I'm not gonna lie. We'll just have to see what happens. Okay, guys, well, I think I'm gonna go ahead and kill it here since we seem to just be devolving into celebrity talk now, but thanks everybody for listening, and I appreciate everybody participating tonight.